He told my kids to shut up and go inside while they were playing catch. I asked him to be respectful. He said, "Your kids act like animals, don't blame me." I put up a privacy screen. The next day, it was torn down. So I showed the footage to someone who owed me a favor. We live in a neighborhood just outside Asheville, North Carolina. Nothing special. Old ranch-style homes, chain-link fences, and driveways cracked with age. Most people here have lived in their houses for decades. It's quiet, or it was, until Mark moved in next door. He bought the place after the previous owner, Mr. Hall, passed away. Mark didn't introduce himself. "No, hi, I'm your new neighbor." He just showed up one day in a U-Haul, started unloading boxes alone, and that was it. I live with my 2 kids, Jonah and Lila. Their mom and I split 3 years ago. I have them most weekdays and every other weekend. They're good kids. Jonah likes baseball. Lila's learning how to throw a spiral with one of those soft footballs. They play outside after school, nothing wild. Some yelling, laughing, chasing. Pretty normal. The first time I heard Mark yell, I thought it was a joke. It was around 4:30 in the afternoon. I was wiping down the counters when I heard someone shout, "Shut up and go inside. For Christ's sake." I ran out. Jonah was holding the football. Lila looked confused. Mark was standing on his back porch, arms folded, just staring down at them like they'd spit on his car. I said, "Hey, come on. They're just playing catch." He didn't even flinch. Just said, "Your kids act like animals. Don't blame me for saying what no one else will." I was stunned. I asked him to be respectful. We're neighbors. He shrugged and said, "Then teach them to act like humans." I didn't yell back. Just went inside and thought about it for the rest of the night. The next morning, I ordered a privacy screen online, a 6-foot green mesh cover you zip tie to your fence. It wasn't expensive, just enough to block his view. Took me 2 hours to put up. Jonah helped. I told him it was just for a little privacy. That night, I checked it before bed. Still up. The next morning it was gone. Zip ties sliced clean. Screen folded in a pile near the trash bins like someone was making a point. At first, I thought maybe it blew off. But then I checked the security camera we installed after someone stole Lila's bike last year. Camera faces the backyard and part of the fence. There he was. Mark. 2:07 nachts. Wearing gloves, holding a flashlight, and using scissors to cut each tie. He didn't rush. He took his time. Then he folded it and tossed it by our bin like trash. I watched the clip 3 times. My hands were shaking. That's when I remembered Dave. Years ago, Dave and I worked together at a roofing company. He made a mistake on a job that could have gotten him fired. I covered for him, told the supervisor it was my fault. He kept his job. A few weeks later, he said, "If you ever need something, seriously, I don't forget that stuff." I sent him the clip and wrote, "You remember what you said?" 10 minutes later, he replied, "I do. What do you want me to do?" I wrote, "Make sure he understands he can't touch my stuff again." He just said, "On it." Dave showed up the next night. Not in the daytime. Not with a knock. Just a quiet arrival after dark. I saw his truck through the slats in my blinds. Parked at the far end of my street, lights off. He walked the rest of the way. Hoodie up, hands in his pockets. I met him at the back gate. Didn't say much. Just handed him the flash drive with the security footage. He nodded once, then pointed at Mark's side of the fence. "Still cutting through at night?" he asked. I said, "Just that once. But I don't trust that it'll be the last." Dave didn't smile. Didn't joke. He just looked at the space between our yards and said, "Leave it to me." The next morning, the privacy screen was back up. I didn't do it. Dave had reinstalled it. Tighter, stronger, zip ties doubled. There was also a new trail cam set up in the tree line. A little hidden one with night vision. Dave had left it without saying anything. I only noticed because the bark was chipped where it was mounted. Mark didn't say a word for 3 days. Then, Friday afternoon, I was mowing the lawn when he stepped out of his house and walked over to the fence. He didn't yell this time. He stood close, real quiet, and said, "Is this supposed to scare me?" You think I don't know what you're doing? I shut off the mower, wiped the sweat from my face, looked at him and said, I'm not doing anything. But if my stuff gets damaged again, the cops won't be the first ones who hear about it. He laughed. Not a normal laugh. One of those short, forced chuckles. Then he said something that stuck in my gut. You really shouldn't let your kids play outside when I'm out here. I didn't reply. I just stared at him. I could feel my hands clenching the mower handle, but I didn't move. That night, I showed the footage to Dave. Just the audio from my phone. Really, I'd hit record the moment Mark stepped out. Dave listened, then said, We're past quiet now. The next day, Mark's car had a new look. 4 slashed tires. Deep key marks all the way down the driver's side. But more than that, someone had spray-painted "Stay in your yard" across the windshield in black paint. He called the cops. Of course he did. They came by, knocked on my door, asked if I'd seen or heard anything. I just said, not a thing. They didn't push. Mark didn't have cameras. And Dave had made sure the street-facing cameras were jammed during the exact hour it happened. Yeah, he has friends who know how to do that. Mark must have known. But he couldn't prove it. And that's when the tension shifted. Not long after, I got a letter from the HOA, complaint about excessive noise and unsightly fence additions. I knew it was him. But here's where it got interesting. I have a friend who works at the county office. I asked her to do a favor, check on the permits for Mark's house. Turns out, Mark had done some interior renovations without pulling the proper permits. And I had an old photo of his house with a shed in the back that's no longer there. It was gone when he moved in, probably demolished. But if you remove a structure without the right paperwork, well, that's not always legal either. So I made a few calls. Not anonymously. I filed a formal complaint. The county took their time, but they showed up 2 weeks later. A white pickup with a seal on the side and a clipboard guy in a polo shirt. I watched from my kitchen window as he knocked on Mark's door and introduced himself. Mark tried to play it cool at first, like it was no big deal, but I saw him start pacing after the guy pointed to the back of the house. I stayed out of sight. Didn't want him looking at me and knowing for sure. But part of me wanted him to. I wanted him to sweat. Over the next few days, more visits. More guys in county jackets, snapping photos, making notes. They found a bunch of violations. The porch roof he added without a permit, the drainage pipe that dumped into the neighbor's yard, and yeah, the missing shed he never reported tearing down. Apparently it had been built too close to the property line, a grandfathered issue. When he removed it, he screwed with the lot survey and created a boundary problem. Long story short, he had to pay fines, submit a ton of paperwork, and hire a contractor to fix what he messed up.
And he knew it came from me.
He didn't say it out loud, but the way he glared at my house every time he stepped outside, I could feel it. Then, things got quiet. Too quiet. My kids went back to playing in the yard. I kept an eye on them, always watching that fence. The trail cam stayed in place. Mark stopped yelling, stopped even coming out most days. I started to think maybe it was over. Then one night, a Wednesday around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound. It wasn't loud, just wrong, like metal scraping. I got up, checked the back window, and froze. Mark was in my yard. Not near the fence. Not near the screen. He was on my porch. I didn't yell. I didn't move. I just stepped back and grabbed the bat I keep near the back door. Then I hit the lights and opened it hard. He froze. Looked like he'd been crouching, trying to loosen the screws on the motion detector above the door. I didn't say a word. Just held the bat in one hand and my phone in the other. I'm calling the cops, I said. He stood there, breathing hard, like he couldn't decide if he was going to charge me or run. Then he just said, You think you're safe because of your friends? I didn't respond. Just dialed. He walked off before I even got through to dispatch. I handed the footage to the police the next day. They took it seriously. Told me it was enough for a restraining order. Maybe even charges for trespassing. I filed the paperwork. But the thing is, I don't think this guy cares about consequences. He's the type who thinks if he can't win, he'll just keep ruining things for everyone else. And now, he knows I won't stop either. 3 days after I filed the restraining order, someone broke into my shed. Didn't take anything, just messed it up. Tools thrown around, paint spilled, shelves knocked over. It wasn't a robbery. It was a message. No fingerprints. No real damage. But the lock was snipped clean, same way my privacy screen had been. The cop who took the report said, "Could be kids." But he said it without meaning it. I knew who it was. I sent Dave a text. He was in my yard again. This time he got into the shed. Dave texted back, "Want me to handle it?" I stared at those words for a while. My gut said no, not yet. I told him, "Hold off.
I've got an idea."
See, I realized something. Mark wasn't just mean. He was scared. Not of people, but of exposure. Of losing control. So I started poking at the edges of his little world. I contacted the HOA board. Offered to run for the open seat in our section. Told them I'd represent the younger families in the neighborhood. They liked the idea. A month later, I was voted in. And with that position, I started getting access to noise complaints, lawn care violations, everything. Guess who had the most logged issues in the last 18 months?
Mark.
Loud music after midnight. Parking violations. Trash bins left on the street. And 3 reports of intimidating behavior toward neighbors, all from the folks across the street, the ones with the little garden gnome collection. I brought it all up at the next board meeting. Should we consider reviewing Mr. standing with the HOA? I asked casually. Seems like he's becoming a liability. The room went quiet. I didn't push. Just let it sit there. Then 2 weeks later, I got a knock at the door. It wasn't Mark. It was a woman. Late 40s. Nice clothes, clipboard in hand. She said, "Hi, I'm Arlene. I'm a real estate agent. Mr. mentioned he might be selling soon. Do you know if the neighborhood's been peaceful lately?" I smiled. Depends on who you ask. About a month later, a big moving truck showed up in front of Mark's house. I didn't cheer. Didn't celebrate. I just watched. He was out there, directing the movers like he was still in control of everything, barking orders, arms crossed, pretending this was all his idea. But I knew better. He was leaving because he lost. Because he couldn't shake me, scare me, or outmaneuver me. Every time he pushed, I pushed back harder.
Smarter.
And yeah, it felt good. Not loud, not flashy. Just good. Dave and I grabbed a beer on my porch that night. He didn't say much. Just nodded toward the empty house and said, "You handled it right." But even with Mark gone, something stuck with me. That night, while putting Jonah to bed, he asked, "Is the mean neighbor really gone?" "Yeah," I said. "He's gone." Jonah looked at me for a second, then asked, "Are we safe now?" And I froze. Because the truth was, yeah, maybe we were. But the fact that he had to ask that question, that's what stayed with me. I still check the cameras every night before bed. Not because I think he's coming back, but because something about all this changed the way I see things. I used to think standing up for your family was about yelling louder. Now I know. It's about never letting someone think they can scare you into silence. But even now, when my kids laugh too loud in the yard, I still catch myself listening for footsteps that aren't there.